be a little late for a list like this, but you know what? These movies wasted my time and my money last year, and maybe they did the same to you. These are my top 10 worst movies of 2013. These are my personal choices and will probably be very different from most of the top 10 lists out there. And also, spoilers might be ahead, so proceed with caution. Number 10. Iron Man 3. A controversial choice, I know, so let me explain my reasons very carefully. Is it wrong to want more Iron Man in an Iron Man movie? In the case of Iron Man 3, no. Even in a movie that's supposed to focus on the alter ego rather than the superhero, there's still a bare minimum of superhero action that we need and we didn't get. There is not one scene in this entire film of Tony Stark in the Iron Man suit at full power kicking some butt. And I was waiting for it, anticipating it, and I never got it. That is just disappointing, depressing, and unacceptable. The closest thing comes at the climax of the movie where Iron Man is jumping in and out of suits randomly and awkwardly. Director Shane Black clearly went out of his way to not make a superhero movie, even to the point of stupid plot conveniences. Tony Stark calls out a terrorist on national TV, and then, to prepare for such an attack, he wears a suit that is not fit for battle. Not only is that disappointing from an action point of view, but from a story point of view, it makes no sense. And speaking of the attack by that terrorist, we have the Mandarin twist. Spare me the speech about how comic book movies can't actually recreate everything from the comic books. I know that. And I, for one, never read the Iron Man comics. I just would have preferred this creepy, mysterious terrorist to Guy Pearce's stereotypical jilted fanboy, who, by the way, reminds me a lot of Jim Carrey's Riddler from Batman Forever. People defend this movie, claiming that it's supposed to be Tony Stark's film, not Iron Man's film. And I can appreciate that if the plot wasn't such an awful mess. There's a million different stories going on at once, and neither one of them gets to finish properly, or some of them just aren't set up well enough. This film is just a disjointed mess that's made watchable thanks to the genius that is Robert Downey Jr. At number 9. Warm Bodies. I didn't go into the theater thinking, oh god, this is another teeny movie, I'm gonna hate it no matter what. I was actually interested in the premise. It's the execution that I have a problem with. We're meant to root for these two enemies to get together, but they warm up to each other, no pun intended, way too quickly. I never really felt any kind of tension that things might not work out for our protagonists. Nick Holt's transformation from mindless zombie to living person happens way too quickly and way too easily. I love stories that honor the classics, but I hate super obvious references. The main character's name is R, the girl's name is Julie, the best friend's name is M, and oh yeah, they shamelessly rip off the balcony scene. I literally facepalmed at that moment. But the biggest problem is that the only conflict in this movie came from John Malkovich, who really wasn't much of a threat, and the Bonies, who inexplicably don't want this romance to work out. And they're dispatched pretty easily. At number 8, Smurfs 2. This is almost unfair, as this movie clearly wasn't aimed at my age demographic. Admittingly, when I was the age where I would have watched Smurfs, I wasn't really into Smurfs anyway, but the only way I can see kids being entertained by this sort of thing is if they're the kind of kids that are entertained by any sort of thing. The acting is phoned in, the jokes are not funny, and the main storyline is upstaged by Neil Patrick Harris's family drama. The dialogue is way too on the nose, even for a kids show. You don't have to explain everything under the sun. Kids aren't stupid, you know. Then there's the villain. This guy has such little power, and he makes so many mistakes that there is absolutely nothing threatening about him at all. The only thing he threatens is the scenery, because in every scene, his hammy acting chews it all up. This story is la 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 lame. At number 7, Insidious Chapter 2. Chapter 1 was a masterpiece, which is why the sequel is so hard to sit through. The scares, for the most part, are nothing new, but time travel is. What is it with these horror movies and time travel now? I'll also say that most horror movie franchises out there today make the mistake of thinking that we need answers to everything, when in actuality, the scariest things involve mysteries, things that we can't understand, things that we can put our own meaning on, which makes it more personal and more identifiable. But this movie answers pretty much all of the mysteries from the first film, and the answers are far from satisfying. We never knew in the first movie just what ghost was haunting Patrick Wilson. The answer, far from scaring you, will instead have you rolling in your seat laughing. I know I was.
Number 6.
R.I.P.D. You know, if you want to make a Men in Black ripoff, do it better. Men in Black had likable characters, funny dialogue, good special effects, nice action scenes. We don't really get a whole lot of that in R.I.P.D. I knew this movie was in trouble from the beginning. You know, it's one thing to start a movie with a voiceover, that's a shaky concept and a big risk to start with. Even worse when that voiceover is delivered by Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not a Ryan Reynolds fan, and this movie is definitely not for him. I was actually looking forward to this movie because I thought it was going to have the dude in it, but it doesn't have the dude. It has Jeff Bridges, but he spends the entire movie talking like this, and I really can't understand what he's saying, nor do I really care that much. The effects are horrible. Men in Black had some CGI characters, and some of them were pretty funny, but even the ones that were funny were still pretty dangerous, and some of them were really scary. In this movie, everybody looks ridiculous. All the monsters. One of them, I swear to you, has to be ripped right from the Austin Powers sequels. Get in my belly! The action's okay, but the actors have no chemistry, the story makes no sense, and if any of the humor is actually funny, it will get old very quickly.
At number 5.
Kick-Ass 2. The first movie had great style and wit. This movie has an overabundance of crude bathroom humor and absolutely no focus. It doesn't know who the main character is, it doesn't know what the main storyline is. It's got Mindy McCready trying to be Hit Girl at first, and then trying to be Lindsay Lohan in Mean Girls, and then trying to be Hit Girl again. It's just a god-awful mess. And it's littered with plot holes. At one point, Kick-Ass must turn himself into the cops. Dave's father, however, pretends to be Kick-Ass so that he will get arrested and not his son. Explain to me how anyone with a brain could believe that this out-of-shape 40-year-old is Kick-Ass. Even with a mask, you can tell that Kick-Ass is no older than 25. Worse yet, this movie ruins some of the character arcs and stories from the first film. The very sweet romance between Dave and Katie is ended with one line of dialogue, which makes no sense when you consider what these two went through in the first Kick-Ass movie. Betrayal in its purest form. Not to mention Jim Carrey is the best part about this movie and is in it for about 20 minutes.
At number 4.
The Host. Movies based on Stephenie Meyer books are usually fun to watch because they are that rare level of stupid that actually makes you laugh. The Host is not one of those movies. It's an example of why books are actually very, very difficult to translate to movies. The story involves an alien parasite named Wanda who invades one of the last human beings on Earth. But the girl just won't die. Her consciousness remains and talks to the alien consciousness. In the movie, this is done with a relentless, obscenely annoying voiceover. You'll have enough of it within the first few minutes, but it will go on for the rest of the story. You also have to suffer through several bland performances and some really unlikable characters. Instead of getting to know the main character Melanie before she becomes an alien, we learn about it in flashbacks after her transformation. We're hardly rooting for this girl we don't really know all that well, who has a really annoying voiceover, and it's not like the rest of the characters are likable. The humans are so violent and nasty that you'll actually start rooting for the aliens. But unfortunately, they don't offer much opposition. The ending is a bigger Deus Ex Machina than the last two Twilight movies. And that's saying something.
At number 3.
A Haunted House. It should be easy to make fun of the Paranormal Activity movies as much as I love them, yet somehow this parody fails. They use the same type of crude humor that hasn't been shocking or funny in the last 13 years. Everything is either a sexual joke, a drug joke, a racist joke, or a joke about deformed or disabled people. All of these stereotypes are completely inaccurate, offensive, and ridiculous. I know comedy is supposed to be about pushing the envelope about what's politically correct, but there is a line and this movie crosses it way too often. The first joke is a dead puppy accidentally run over by a car. Wow, that'll have them rolling in their seats. Yeah, they'll roll out of their seats and right into the ticket booth to demand a refund.
At number 2.
Scary Movie 5. When I saw Haunted House, the puppy joke led me to believe that a dead baby joke was not far behind. If you haven't figured it out yet, abuse of animals or babies is not funny to me. Scary Movie 5 includes babies getting their heads bonked, being dropped, and at one point, a baby's head catches on fire. This is a nightmare! What nutcase from which asylum thought that this would actually be funny? The movie parodies way too many films, from Mama to Paranormal Activity to Inception, and results in a muddled script with no structure that just bored me to death. And if you think that a parody doesn't need a good structure or even a plot, then you probably haven't seen a good parody in your entire life.
And the number one choice is...
After Earth. Yeah, I said that this would probably be a very different list than most people's, but I'm pretty sure that this one, if it's not number one, it's definitely on your list. Oh, Shyamalan, what happened to you? There was a point where I thought you couldn't make a bad movie. Now I don't think you remember how to make a good one. This film is supposed to focus on a father-son relationship, but we never see said relationship. We see a completely emotionless Will Smith as Cypher Rage, a name you cannot say with a straight face. This guy is so robotic in the way he moves, and the way he talks, and the way he acts that I was actually expecting a big Shyamalan twist that Cypher Rage was a robot. But no, he's actually not a robot. He's just a cold-hearted jerk who barely seems to even care about his son. Speaking of which, I actually feel sorry for Jaden Smith. He's a decent actor, but not good enough for this film. The opening narration shows this, but then again, I don't think even a great actor could survive this movie or make it watchable. The idea is that fear is an illusion which must be eliminated completely. Danger is real, fear is a choice. But without fear, we would have no knowledge of danger. If Katai Rage were really to live without fear, he'd sit out in the open and get eaten alive. Oh, wait, no, those monsters can only see things that are afraid. If they aren't afraid, their five senses shut down completely and they can't find their way out of a paper bag. This is just completely stupid. This plot makes no sense. Its acting, even from the extras, is terrible. The effects are nothing really wonderful, and the suspense barely holds up. After Earth should be banned from planet Earth. So those are my top 10 worst movies of 2013. Now I want you to go to the comments section and tell me about your top 10 worst movies of 2013. And make sure you watch out for my top 10 best movies of 2013 to be immediately followed by my most anticipated films of 2014.